Hello and welcome to episode 108 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. As always, I am joined by fellow co-founder Evan Silva, and we are coming off of football. Yes, actual football after months of speculation and coach speak and nonsense. We finally got some actual answers. Evan, what's going on?
What's up, man? It was a very, very exciting, drama-filled week one. We got a lot of stuff right, got some things wrong. There will be mea culpas on this series of team-by-team podcasts, but I'm ready to dive into it.
Okay, as Evan said, on today's show, we're going to go team by team through each squad in the AFC, discussing our most important takeaways. This podcast is free. The NFC version is premium. You can either listen to it on the site if you're logged in as a subscriber or through the private RSS feed each subscriber can find in the About drop down. The show schedule for the rest of the week is all premium. Myself, Evan, Andrew Wiggins on Friday night talking the full DFS slate. Dink and Leone on Saturdays talking GPPs. Evan and I on Sunday mornings taking your questions, discussing late news right before lock. If you have not signed up yet, we do have weekly, monthly, and full season options up. Access to all our projections, the shows, top plays, Silva's matchups, all my DFS stuff, everything. All right, let's get to it with the AFC, and we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens. I thought one thing that stuck out to me was that what your housemate Daigle was tweeting about. Mark Andrews had never played 57% of the snaps before. He was in on 71% of the week one snaps in a game Baltimore benched their starters. 73% of those Andrews snaps came in the slot. Said it before the season, Evan. I thought Andrews had a legit chance to be the tight end one ahead of Kittle, ahead of Kelsey. I'm willing to double down on that bet. What did you see out of that and anything else with Baltimore?
Yeah, Ravens just picked up right where they left off offensively. We predicted a blowout win for the Ravens against the Browns. They delivered 38-6. This offense is an absolute juggernaut. Marquise Brown also, I thought that his usage was very promising. You know, it's still not going to be a super high volume pass offense, but they're so efficient. The kind of conundrum in the Baltimore offense is the backfield. J.K. Dobbins led the way in snaps, but he only played 2 more than Mark Ingram and only 8 more than Gus Edwards. It was a 3-way RBBC. I think it was somewhat influenced by the game script, which was heavily, of course, in Baltimore's favor. But J.K. Dobbins, early in the game, looked like the goal line back. He scored twice. None of the running backs saw a single target. So that's going to make for a difficult situation when it comes to making start-sit decisions from this backfield, even in really good matchups. And the Ravens have another great matchup on deck against a pretty bad Texans defense in week 2.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was by design, but as Evan alluded to, J.K. Dobbins did get both of Baltimore's carries inside the 5-yard line, and that could have been random or it could have been designed. We'll probably find out more as it goes along. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills. And, man, to me, the story was Josh Allen. And I get that he was playing the Jets and a Jets defense, which had traded away their players and kind of given up. But Buffalo changed the way they played. And maybe it was just for this game, but I hope it's for permanent. They went 4 wide. I mean, Stephon Diggs and John Brown are ballers. Josh Allen goes over 300 pass yards for the first time ever. We know in fantasy he already has this massive rushing floor, added another rushing touchdown, 10 rushing touchdowns in his last 16 games. To me, that was the story in Buffalo. And then the backfield split between Singletary and Moss was kind of as expected. Zach Moss did get the goal line work, 3 carries inside the 5-yard line for Zach Moss, 0 carries inside the 5-yard line for Devin Singletary. What did you see out of Buffalo, Evan?
I talked about it in matchups and a little bit on previous podcasts that the Bills are going to run a lot more quick game passing offense this year, even in a game where they controlled the contest pretty much from start to finish. Josh Allen was a high volume passer, a lot of yards after catch. He ran like an absolute maniac, 14 rushing attempts. That was a career high in addition to his career highs in pass attempts and passing yards. Stephon Diggs, such a big addition to the offense. He was a chain mover in this game. They really didn't have to go throw deep. Again, they ran a lot of quick game. They ran a bunch of 4 receiver sets where they get their rookie, who they really like, Gabriel Davis, on the field, in addition to John Brown and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. And that spreads out the defense and creates more advantageous advantageous rushing opportunities for Josh Allen. Josh Allen finishes the number 3 fantasy quarterback on the week. He was the overall fantasy quarterback 6 in 2019. And of course, the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback over the final 6 weeks of his rookie season in 2018. So things are really looking up for his fantasy value. And he's got the Dolphins on deck. And I think the Patriots kind of gave the Bills, Brian Daboll runs the Bills offense, gave them kind of a blueprint for how to attack and smash the Dolphins' weak defense.
Yeah, another good spot for Josh Allen this past game. And from a DFS perspective, I mean, Steph Diggs, John Brown coming in super, super, super low owned. Hopefully you got the Jamison Crowder bring back and not the Chris Herndon bring back. Let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals. And the thing that concerned me about Joe Mixon, man, I mean, game's on the line. Joe Mixon's not in there because it's a passing situation. And like they give the guy $48 million. He's not in there for the guts of the game. Now look, I get it. It was a tough spot. They played the Chargers, who have an excellent defensive line. Brandon talked about the mismatch, and people are saying, I can't believe I took Mixon over Josh Jacobs. Well, Josh Jacobs played Carolina. If it was reversed and Joe Mixon had played Carolina, Josh Jacobs had played the Chargers, I think the narrative would be completely different. I would note that Mixon gets Cleveland, Philly, and Jacksonville next. Do you have anything to say to the people who are concerned already about Joe Mixon, Evan?
Joe Mixon did run 17 routes. Gio ran 12. Joe Mixon still handled 20 touches. Gio only handled 5. Certainly, it's not ideal that Joe Mixon is losing 2-minute and obvious passing situation snaps to Giovanni Bernard. This happened last year as well. I think that Joe Mixon is still like his volume is very secure. But I mean, hopefully the light flips on for the Bengals coaching staff and they start using Joe Mixon more in the pass game. He was such a good receiver at Oklahoma, and he's been a good receiver when he's gotten the opportunities in the NFL. But yeah, a slow start for a guy that I thought was one of the safest late first-round fantasy picks.
Yeah, and again, a very difficult matchup. I think we'll see a different Joe Mixon going forward. Evan's matchup is already up, by the way, for Cleveland and Cincy. I believe that's the Thursday game. I also want to note on Cincy, John Ross, and I like John Ross, man. I think people just left him for dead. He actually led the team in snaps, led all wide receivers in snaps with 57, then Boyd, then A.J. Green, Mike Thomas, Higgins, Auden Tate, all played just 15 snaps. There's still a rotation there, but I was at least encouraged to see John Ross getting so much playing time. All right, let's go to Cleveland, and people have concerns about Nick Chubb already, and this was the concern that we talked about for a lot of the offseason. Nick Chubb losing snaps to Kareem Hunt. They each played 33 snaps. Chubb actually ran 16 routes. But yeah, man, I think that there are concerns. And other concerns as a play of Baker Mayfield. And tough spot against Baltimore, I understand. But Baker Mayfield's kind of calling card coming out of school was accuracy. And it's just not what we've seen from Baker Mayfield with the Browns. Another rough day for Odell. What did you see out of Cleveland, Evan?
Yeah, Baker's opening day was real discouraging. He is still doing the thing where he doesn't trust his pass protection. He bails out to his right. He flees even clean pockets, and he has not been accurate. I mean, and it's we chalked up a lot of it to a poor coaching staff last year, and this is a team that had very little continuity though. Carrying over from 2019. Hopefully Baker Mayfield, catches on and improves as he gets more comfortable in the offense. But right now he is definitely not a comfortable player. I think that Nick Chubb is going to be okay. And I think he's going to bounce back on Thursday night against Cincinnati. That was never a good spot for Nick Chubb against the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens poured a lot of resources into improving their defensive front during the offseason, and the Browns were big dogs against Baltimore. They're going to be almost touchdown favorites on Thursday night, but he's definitely going to be a running back, I think, that is subject and at risk of getting game scripted out. I mean, Kareem Hunt wound up with playing only one fewer snap than Nick Chubb in this game where they were losing from start to finish, and Kareem Hunt out-touched him 17-11.
All right, let's go to Denver. Big story coming out of the Denver game on Monday night, of course, was Philip Lindsay going down with the turf toe issue. I don't know how severe it is yet. We're recording this Tuesday, 2:00. Seems unlikely he'd be able to go in week 2, but we'll see after Phillip Lindsay went down. Snaps were Melvin Gordon, 22, Royce Freeman, 6. That's kind of the split I would expect going forward if he can't go. And then the other big story out of Denver was Noah Fant kind of having his breakout game on national television. What did you see out of Denver last night, Evan?
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy also, despite a couple of big drops, looked pretty good with the ball in his hands against Tennessee. I thought that we talked about it in matchups. If Cortland Sutton was going to be out, then Noah Fant was going to have a big game, and he did. He did deliver against the Titans. But this offense, I mean, I thought Drew Lock was kind of everywhere. He's at his usual 6.5 yards per pass attempt. That's exactly what he posted in 2019 over his 4-1 finish in terms of wins and losses. The injury to Phillip Lindsay, I think, is probably something that's going to make him week to week and restore Melvin Gordon as the clear-cut lead back in Denver. Melvin Gordon did lose a fumble, and ball security has been a problem for him for an extended period of time. But I think that his job security is very, very safe. And his carry share very, very safe as well.
Yeah, and it seemed like Cortland Sutton had somewhat of a chance to play in that game, so I kind of expect him back for week 2, but we'll see. The Houston Texans opened up the season, and it was a great day for Will Fuller. 31% target share, 51% of his team's air yards. Most importantly, did not get hurt. So a really good start for Will Fuller. Matchups are going to get tougher going forward, I think, and game environments are going to get tougher going forward, but certainly a strong start for Will Fuller. Other news out of Houston Texans, Duke Johnson is hurt, and I thought David Johnson actually looked reasonably good. What did you see out of Houston in that opener against Kansas City?
Yeah, David Johnson did look good. Duke Johnson got injured and is week to week, not expected to play in week 2. They do have, as you mentioned, 2 really tough matchups coming up in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So it's not going to be an easy road for the Texans offense upcoming, but you have to love that target share and air yard share for Will Fuller. I mean, he pretty much hopped right into the DeAndre Hopkins role. He's not, they're very dissimilar wide receivers, but from a volume standpoint, exactly what we wanted to see from Will Fuller. And they're going to be projected to be playing these games from behind over the next few weeks. And so the opportunities will be there for Will Fuller, even in what looks like difficult on paper matchups.
I got a couple questions about Jordan Akins as a waiver ad. I think the lack of a lot of routes run, but the lack of targets on routes run, I think it's something that Corain and some other sharp people have been working on, where when you're not getting targets on your route run, well, it says something about your ability to get open, et cetera, et cetera. Would you be looking to add Jordan Akins, Evan, if you were kind of in need of tight end?
I would not. I mean, this has been a recurring theme with Jordan Akins, and he looked good on his receptions against the Chiefs, but he's a guy that has always, he's technically their pass-catching tight end. Darren Fells is technically their blocking tight end. And Jordan Akins has always run a fair number of routes, but has such a low target rate on those routes. And he's competing in the middle of the field with Randall Cobb and, Fells and David Johnson. And I don't think he's going to be – you can pick him up in like a tight end premium league, but he would not be prioritized by me in a 12-team season-long league.
Yep. Okay. Biggest fantasy story of the week comes out of Indy, because unfortunately for Marlon Mack, I really hate to see it, man. I mean, dude was going to a contract year, and now he's just dusted, blew out his Achilles. Marlon Mack is out for the season. Obviously, big upgrade for Jonathan Taylor after Marlon Mack went down. Jonathan Taylor, 10 carries and 7 targets. That includes penalties. Naheem Hines, 3 carries and 7 targets. They say they're going to get Jordan Wilkins into the mix a little bit, but it's going to be Jonathan Taylor as the feature back and Naheem Hines in this high volume pass catching role. We know when you have Phillip Rivers at quarterback, you're going to be targeted. I mean, there was a lot of concerns about Jonathan Taylor's pass catching ability coming out. He had 7 targets after Marlon Mack went down. Really encouraging to me. Thoughts on what's going to happen in Indy's backfield, and we'll for sure be talking more about it as the week goes on, especially with DFS, as JT and Hines are going to be firmly in play.
Well, first of all, the offense as a whole performed a lot better than the outcome sort of suggested. The Colts had almost 450 yards of total offense. They didn't punt. They didn't have a single punt in the game. Phillip Rivers threw 2 ugly picks where he was just forcing it, and that's what shows up on SportsCenter. And on the Twitter memes. But the offense was definitely able to move the ball. Jonathan Taylor now is in league-winning position. Nyheim Hines went undrafted in some leagues. I think he should be near or at the top of waiver wire pickups. He is going to have that Austin Eckler role, and Jonathan Taylor is going to be more like the Melvin Gordon, but a better version, I think, of Melvin Gordon behind a much better offensive line than Melvin Gordon has ever played behind. This Colts offensive line is a top 3 unit. So Jonathan Taylor, I think, is going to be an absolute smash. I'm buying low on T.Y. Hilton, who struggled in his matchup with C.J. Henderson. He dropped a couple of passes. After the game, he accepted blame for the loss. They're going back home for week 2 against this Vikings secondary that just got eaten alive by the Packers. And I think that T.Y. Hilton bounces back big. I think that he's a guy that a lot of people were too low on, I think, during the draft process. And now he had a slow week 1. So I think it's a perfect time to buy him. Paris Campbell's usage was really, really promising. He led all the Colts wide receivers in snaps played. He led them in catches and yards. And he looks like an every week wide receiver 3 play now going forward.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say about Paris Campbell. I mean, 61 snaps for Paris Campbell out of 73 total, 58 of them in the slot. And, that was the kind of thing like, going in, I wasn't sure how much Campbell would play. Would they play Pascal? Would they find room for Pittman? But it's clear that Campbell is going to be the every down slot guy there now, and it's extremely promising. Speaking of that game, let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I didn't think there were a lot of takeaways here. I'm curious what you thought of James Robinson, but from a wide receiver perspective, DJ Chark, 42 out of 50 snaps, then Keelan Cole, then Laviska Shenault, then Chris Conley down at 16. So pretty good debut for Viska. I'm curious what you thought about him and James Robinson.
Well, Laviska is locked into 3 receiver sets, along with Keelan Cole and DJ Chark. This was a game where Gardner Minshew threw 3 touchdown passes, but he only threw for 170 yards. So none of the guys had really a big day, although they all did score touchdowns. But yeah, I think that Laviska Shenault is now like a wide receiver 4 flex option every week. Keelan Cole maybe a little bit below that. And I still think DJ Chark is an every week fantasy starter. They're going to have more than 20 pass attempts on a regular basis going forward. I thought that James Robinson came out pretty hot, running the ball, slowed down as the game progressed, wasn't too involved in the passing game. And he'll be like, I think, a low upside flex play going forward in season long.
Yeah, Jacksonville only got 50 plays off. And, we're going to talk about other teams that got like 80 plays off. And people don't this is why Thorman stuff is so important. Like it has such a huge impact on the game and Minshew and everybody when Jacksonville only gets 50 plays off, and being able to project that, I think, is super valuable. Let's go to Kansas City, and no surprises out of Kansas City, really. I mean, you had Mecole Hardman on the shy away list, and he played behind Sammy Watkins in a big way. He also played behind Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson's 17 routes run, Mecole Hardman only 12. Obviously, the story of that game, though, was Clyde Edwards-Helaire performance. 78% of the running back carries, 50% of the running back targets. Darrell Williams, the mentor, played plenty, but CEH is just so far and away obviously the better option already, and the pass game usage will obviously come for CEH. Anything on Kansas City, Evan?
I would not be dropping Darrell Williams yet. He is still the heavy favorite for number 2 back duties in Kansas City, but he did not play well against the Texans. He ran with like a high pad level, was unable to break first contact. He left a lot of yards on the field. And then you saw the Chiefs sort of switch to Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the almost every down back over the final 2 quarters. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played 59% of the snaps in the first half, 77% in the second half. And I think that was largely in part due to the disparity in performance. Clyde Edwards-Helaire just a lot better than Darrell Williams is.
Yeah, let's go to the Chargers, because I think a lot of the concerns we had before the season about how this offense would play, about offensive line, about how Tyrod affects their pieces kind of all came to fruition. Tyrod only targets the running backs on 3% of his throws, and I know that his career rate is way higher, up around 20%, but still it's not going to be like Phillip Rivers, who can push towards 27, 30%. And also Josh Kelly played a lot, especially at the goal line. So it was not great for Eckler to see Tyrod not throwing to running backs, to see Josh Kelly come in at the goal line. I guess Justin Jackson getting hurt helps Eckler a little bit, but really that's just a boost for Josh Kelly. What did you see out of the Chargers?
Yeah, Josh Kelly runs mean, man. And he was featured in scoring position. You know, if Austin Eckler is not going to see a high volume of targets and is going to lose goal line carries to a teammate, that is going to render him a low upside RB2 as opposed to the RB1 that he was last year. We knew that there was a lot of regression coming. And this dude caught, 90 passes last year. I expected him to catch 40 fewer this season, but it might even be lower than that. This offense is it's not going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. This is the way that Anthony Lynn wants to play. He wants to play ball control. He wants to, have more rushing attempts than pass attempts on a weekly basis. They're going to take some shots downfield. Mike Williams actually coming into the game with a shoulder injury, took a big hit on a bomb down the right sideline to that shoulder and popped right back up. That was good to see. Keenan Allen, I think he's headed for a rough year. Hunter Henry, though, led the team in catches and yards, and I think that he's going to be relatively safe compared to the other Chargers pass catchers.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, the Raiders, big story, of course, was Josh Jacobs' pass game usage. The thing is, game script and game flow and environment could not have been better for Josh Jacobs. Now, to his credit, he saw 2.1 targets per game last year. He got 6 in this game, played on 77% of the snaps after only playing 54% of the snaps last year. But as we've talked about, every time we've talked about the Raiders, we knew they were going to smash. This offense was going to play well against Carolina. Will they have the same success in their next 5 games? New Orleans, New England, Buffalo, Kansas City, Tampa. It's really a tough road to hoe. So, everybody worried about Joe Mixon right now. I think those same people that have Josh Jacobs are going to be like, gosh, well, this is a mess now too. What do you think about Jacobs and anything else with the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, we knew all along that Josh Jacobs was going to smash that first matchup. And then now he's got to run the gauntlet. And I think he's a sell high in season-long leagues. I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear that due to the recency bias, but, we got to think forward, in this game. I would not have projected him for 6 targets. I probably would have projected him for more 3 or 4, but the 6 was promising. But when they start to play from behind, and the Panthers are a bad team, and now they're going to face a bunch of good teams, when the Raiders start to play from behind, are we going to see more of Jalen Richard and Devontae Booker? And I think that the answer is probably yes.
Yeah. I also thought it was a pretty good debut for Henry Ruggs. He had to leave the game briefly with a knee issue, but he certainly looked really explosive out there, and he's going to certainly have chances. Obviously, very difficult spots coming up, but Henry Ruggs certainly looks like the real deal. Let's go to Miami. I mean, first of all, Devontae Parker aggravated his hamstring injury. Okay, but they played Myles Gaskin ahead of Matt Breida, and yeah, it was a brutal matchup. But they have another brutal matchup coming up. They have to play Buffalo this week. So the best thing I can say about what happened with Miami was Mike Gesicki, who played 45 out of 62 snaps. I mean, he's essentially a wide receiver, 32 snaps in the slot for Mike Gesicki, 7 of them out wide. He doesn't even line up in line. He's essentially a wide receiver. Devontae Parker aggravating his hammy only helps that. But yeah, just brutal matchups to start the year, Buffalo, New England for Miami. What did you see out of them?
Yeah, the running back situation was, according to Brian Flores, somewhat influenced by the fact that the Dolphins played a little bit more spread, and also that Jordan Howard left and then temporarily did return to score a late game goal line touchdown. But, he was out of the game. That helped Myles Gaskin. They also used Patrick Laird. They also mixed in Matt Breida. This is a 4-man backfield right now, and on a bad offense, and that's typically a situation to avoid. If Devontae Parker does miss time, then that's going to lead to a usage bump for Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki. Preston Williams got Tre'Davious White coming up, though, so it's this off. I mean, it's the Tua Tagovailoa watch is officially on. We know who Ryan Fitzpatrick is. We know that he had that hot run to finish last season, but he throws the ball to the other team way too much.
Yeah, and maybe after they get out of this week and they get some softer matchups, they'll get to it in there. New England. So I will take the L on Cam not running like he used to. And they didn't just run him. I mean, he didn't just run wildly. They had him on design runs. They ran power run in the red zone, finished with 15 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. However, I will not take the L on Cam having trouble for the same reason Tom Brady had trouble last year, which is they just do not have a lot of weapons on this team. And now, as Thorman noted, they're going to be playing really slow, whereas with Tom Brady, they were at least playing fast. So I get that Cam got there in a big way in fantasy because of his rushing ability. I don't think it's something that I'd really want to sustain. I can't think of any Patriots that I'd be really excited to start other than Cam. What did you think of Cam's debut as a Patriot?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was listening to Robert Mays and his podcast on The Athletic with Nate Tice, who is a pretty good film guy. And Nate Tice pointed out that the Patriots actually changed their pre-snap language to suit Cam. Like usually the pre-snap call is the Patriots pre-snap call is like red 80, red 80. But with Cam, he's always been like ready. And then, he gets the shotgun snap. So I thought that was kind of a cool little nugget that was pointed out by Nate Tice. And it sort of speaks to the Patriots. The Patriots have been great for a long time because of Tom Brady, because of Bill Belichick. But I think that the number one reason that the Patriots have been great for so long is because they are so good at self-scout. They're so good at maximizing the strengths of their players and minimizing their weaknesses. And they are very willing to, build their offense around their personnel as opposed to, trying to jam their personnel into their scheme. And that's exactly what they showed in week 1. And Cam Newton, 15 rushing attempts. I mean, he's the running back and the quarterback on this team. And that, he can get right back in. He was a perennial top 5 fantasy quarterback before his injuries over the past 2 years. I think he can get back there with all this rushing usage.
Yeah, for sure. Jets. Jets. Le'Veon Bell gets hurt. I believe when Michael Pirine is still hurt, they're down to Frank Gore at running back. But, I mean, they're just a mess. And we knew they'd be a mess going up to Buffalo and stuff. Obviously brutal. But I did end up playing Chris Herndon. Even though I didn't love it, he did see a 20% target share, which was good. So I think the play was fine. But it's going to be really hard to be confident in any Jets. Jamison Crowder did break that long kind of run, which you don't expect from him, break free of the condoms like that. But what did you see out of the Jets?
It was a discouraging performance, I think, from Sam Darnold. He left a lot of yards on the field. He played frenetic. It didn't help that he was the second most pressured quarterback across the NFL in week 1. Only Daniel Jones was under more pressure against the Steelers than was Sam Darnold against Buffalo. And that's behind a remade offensive line that the Jets have poured a lot of resources into. Hopefully that will get better as the season progresses. They obviously lack continuity up front coming into 2020, but yeah, I mean, I think that the only playable guys in this offense right now, I mean, unless you want to deal with Frank Gore, are Jamison Crowder and Chris Herndon. They got the 49ers coming up.
Yeah. Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. I told you so, Twitter. Injury Twitter is all over us, Evan, because they said they could have predicted this James Conner injury. They knew that James Conner was going to hurt his ankle in week 1. And I think there is merit to saying that guys who have a history of injuries are more likely to get injured going forward. I don't think there's merit to say yet that James Conner was a terrible third-round pick because we knew he was going to get hurt. We knew Benny Snell was going to steal carries from him. I don't know that we can say all that yet. What we can say is that Benny Snell is obviously a hot waiver ad, and there's concern for James Conner because he's banged up already, and Benny Snell looked really good on Monday night. What do you think about the running back situation in Pittsburgh going forward?
Yeah, Benny Snell should be one of the top waiver wire pickups this week. During the offseason, he shed a bunch of weight, and I think he definitely looked a little bit quicker. He's still not, one of the most athletic running backs around, but he was very competent, more than competent, I think, against the Giants. And it's just going to be a week-to-week thing with James Conner. It's an absolute disaster to have this happen to your third-round pick in week 1, and we're just going to have to go week to week from here. Deontay Johnson did not play well in the game, but he did see 10 targets, led the team in targets. Juju was right where we wanted him. He scored a couple of touchdowns, 6 for 69. And he's looking like he's going to be a steal for people that got him in the 4th round. We had him valued more along the 2nd, 3rd round turn.
Yeah. And Deontay Johnson, although, you could say he didn't play well, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger clearly likes throwing to him. 10 targets for Deontay Johnson. And most importantly, I thought Ben looked really healthy. Last note I have on this game is James Washington, 37-19 in snaps over Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool did have a really nice catch deep down the sideline there early in the game. Okay, last team we're going to hit on today in the AFC is the Tennessee Titans. Finally, once everybody is off Corey Davis at long last, I mean, Corey Davis was even barely owned in Showdown, and everybody's owned in Showdown. Corey Davis finally shows up with 7-101 on 8 targets. I don't know if it's a sign of things to come, but at least some sign of life for Corey Davis. A.J. Brown also saw 8 targets. It was a volume game for Ryan Tannehill, and we talked about it so much over the offseason. Would there be volume games for Ryan Tannehill? This one turned into one, and A.J. Brown still didn't go off, which I think is a little bit concerning, but just one game. What did you think out of the Titans last night?
Yeah, I don't think we can expect 43 pass attempts per week from Ryan Tannehill. It just wound up being a game where the Titans got off a ton of plays. They had almost 80 plays from scrimmage. They were just like, they just had really long drives. Corey Davis has always been a really talented guy. I mean, he was a number 5 overall pick in the draft. He's dealt with some injuries, bad situations with Marcus Mariota. I think he's going to be difficult to trust, but the talent is there. I think that A.J. Brown looked really good. If we're telling a different story if Tannehill doesn't overthrow him by a bit in the back left corner of the end zone and he scores a touchdown against the Broncos. Everybody's feeling pretty good about him. I think he's going to be fine. Jonnu Smith, 7 targets, again a little bit inflated by Tannehill's pass volume, but he looked good out there. Derrick Henry did not break any long runs, but the volume was there. He did catch 3 passes. He was pulled out consistently, though, in 3rd down situations for Jeremy McNichols, who they just promoted before the game from the practice squad, and that was discouraging for a player that we thought had a chance to be more involved in the passing game. I'll take the 3 catches and the 16 points or whatever that he put up. We know that he's going to remain the focal point of the offense. I think they got the Jaguars next, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they got the Jaguars next, and I don't know who owns the Jaguars more, Derrick Henry or Shad Khan.
All right, that's a good place to end this AFC team by team pod. Appreciate you all listening. If you'd like to hear the NFC, you can find it on the premium feed. So for Evan, for producer Luke, I'm Adam. Good luck, everybody.